name of our show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to The Large Glass. I'm Todd.
I'm Terri.
And this is our weekly live stream where we bring you a new artist or art-related topic to talk about. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. How's it going with you?
Not bad. How you guys doing out there? It's nice to see you all. I see we've got a few of our regular suspects here already in the chat.
Yes.
Nice to have you as usual. We have so much, as usual.
As usual.
But I got to start off with a correction. For those of you who get the newsletter, I made a mistake in the newsletter on a particular date. So I put a little bit in there about a show coming up at the Pottery Collective. It's their online exclusive that's opening soon called Actual Paper. And I put the starting date of that as October 28th. It is in fact October 23rd. So I will correct that in next week's. There's still plenty of time before that show opens, but I just wanted to make that clear that, we had an issue there. So I had a lot to type.
Yeah.
So let's see. That's the first thing. I just would also like to say I'm in that show. I'm honored to be in a show at the Pottery Collective. So when that opens, you have to check that out. But some of my cabinet card drawings are going to be in there. And there's Audrey. Hi, Audrey.
Hello.
Nice to see you. So let's see. Oh, wait. Destroyer T0 is now following.
All right.
Nice. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
And we got another follower, too. Silkwager and Ariomador. Oh, we got some people following. This is great. Hi, Dave. Hi, Audrey. Good to see you guys. A couple of other things. We had a pin winner this week.
Oh, why we did. Yes, on the art contest for Guess the Artist. Anne Sherwood Pundyke actually won.
She nailed that
She nailed
boom.
it immediately. She guessed go again. And that's good. I'm loving the vibe from this contest because people are really participating and I think it's awesome.
It's getting a lot of action. So for those of you that don't know, on Thursdays on our Instagram, Terri posts a cropped image of some piece of art. And you have to guess the artist. And if you're the first one in the comments to guess who the artist is, you win one of our awesome little pins that we have. And so we'll mail that out to the winner.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool. The only thing is, I got to tell you, if someone guesses it instantly, like in the case of Anne this week,
yes,
we might hold off a little bit.
Well, that's what I'm starting to do because I want more people to play. So if I hold off till the evening to answer, I find that more people chime in, which is
Gotcha.
The goal.
Glenn's here. He says some new followers might be my ceramic students.
All right.
Awesome. First of all, if you are one of Glenn's ceramic students, you have one of the best teachers I've ever met in my life. And you probably already know that because we're pretty well into the semester by now. But lucky you for having that guy. There's John and Jess Park. Hi from over here. They're watching on YouTube tonight. Thank you.
Right. Great.
Cool. Let's drink.
Let's drink.
All right. So
our guy comes from Philly tonight,
yeah.
which I'm excited about. I lived in Philadelphia for about 4 years of my life, was a nurse at Jefferson Hospital, and I think Philadelphia has some fantastic breweries. So that's what we're drinking tonight.
Yes, and we went looking for
I went looking for the Kensinger because this particular artist is from the Kensington neighborhood, but I couldn't find it here in our little town in New Jersey.
So we're drinking Yards, which is also a fantastic brewery in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Terry's going to be drinking the Jefferson's Golden Ale, which I'm going to pour for you. And I'm going to be having... I'm going to be having the Filthy.
The Filthy.
Now, the problem with the Filthy is the can
green.
is green. And so, as you know, some of you, that the green screen is going to mess with this. But it's kind of cool. It's a unfiltered hazy IPA in the can. Looks delicious. Filthy is spelled with a PH.
That's right.
And why wouldn't it be?
Yes.
So, I'm going to pop that baby open.
I thought that was going to kind of
All right.
go overboard.
Now, Philadelphia has always been, our residence where Terry and I live is right between New York and Philadelphia. We're about halfway. We're a little closer to New York than we are to Philly. However, I like the scene in Philly.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot going on down there.
It has a very vibrant art scene.
And it has the Duchamp collection.
It certainly does.
So that's something we're in love with. Anyway, There's Jess Park. John had mentioned before that it was just him. But Jess is on Twitch. John is on YouTube. Nice. Good to see you. There's Ben Hagenbush. Cheers. This is episode 59.
Episode 59.
We're one away from the decade.
We are.
All right. Everybody, let us know what you're drinking in the chat. It's good to have you. We're excited for tonight. Oh, man, that's good.
Filthy.
The filthy is filthy. No, it's awesome. I really like that.
Is it good?
Yeah, that's got a nice complex. You know, it's funny, on the label, it shows this like madman on a pile of artichokes, and looks like he's gobbling them up.
I think those are the hops.
Oh, those are hops. Those aren't artichokes. Those are hops. I don't taste artichoke in the beer. It's funny how that works. There's Carolyn Thau saying cheers. Cheers to you.
That is 6.5%.
Audrey's having a Pinot Grigio.
Very nice.
And I'm finally not having a boring Chardonnay, drinking a Chateauneuf du Pape. Awesome.
Very nice.
All right, so John's having the Chateauneuf du Pape.
Cool.
We gotta go there one day. I think maybe we do a wine tasting one night.
Sure.
Maybe we make that a special event.
I'm game.
We could pair wine with art, not just in terms of region, but maybe in terms of flavor. Like how how you pair a wine with a good cheese and they bring each other
like
together.
A visual
Maybe find a way to
pairing?
pair the taste and the visuals.
That could be
like
interesting.
a synesthesia kind of thing.
Maybe.
All right, that's a stretch.
I'm thinking fauve. What goes with fauve?
Jess is having Prosecco. Dave is, of course, having a Malbec,
Very nice.
his standard. So a couple things to talk about. Number one, something I just saw on Instagram before we went live is the Gallery Gold Montclair, which is Gold Scopophilia in Montclair, New Jersey, has an awesome show right now on of David Ambrose's work. And they're going to be doing a talk this coming Friday at 11 a.m. You can either go live to the gallery itself, or you can pick it up on Zoom. They're going to have a Zoom meeting that you can join. And if you're curious about that, you can head over to their Instagram, which is at Gold Scopophilia. That's a bit of a mouthful, but it's SCOPOPHILA. And let me just pop that back up there for you one more time so you can see it. ILIA. Yeah, David's work is fantastic, and this show looks really cool. We would like to get out to see that show, but he'll be on talking about it at 11 on Friday morning, so definitely go and check that out. Let's see. Oh,
Mel.
Melody Mayer Fleischer.
Good to see you, Mel.
Yeah, nice.
Yes, Philly does have great breweries, and she should know because her son's down there right now.
Oh,
so
nice.
she
Good.
knows.
Good. So we got some support for Philly coming.
Yeah.
Ben's like, not drinking, still sewing up elf bodies. Yeah, that was a mysterious thing you said last week. Boo Jazz is here. Maplewood Brewery Brownie Points, brown ale with vanilla.
Ooh,
Oh, that sounds good.
good. That sounds like it goes pretty well with ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. And then she says, love you guys.
Yeah,
We love you too.
we
That's
do love
awesome.
you
Thank
too.
you. Let's see. What else do we have to talk about? We got our pin winner. Oh, we got to talk about Empty Bowl.
We do have to talk about
Can you
Empty
introduce
Bowl.
this for everybody?
I certainly can. I'm excited to introduce Empty Bowl. It was a project started at the Flemington Food Pantry almost 2 decades ago. One of my friends who, if anyone read the newsletter this week, we're focusing on ceramics and pottery. And one of my girlfriends is from the ceramics mafia that I was talking about, but she started the whole Empty Bowl project with the Flemington Food Pantry. And basically what it is all the proceeds go to the Flemington Food Pantry to help end hunger. This event this year is on the 22nd of October.
Lynn's here.
Hi.
And John says the new Restream feature is great. John, thank you. I figured that out
That's
about
great.
8 minutes before the show started tonight. So
Yeah.
that was a win for me, but keep going. I'm sorry.
I'll keep going. But anyway, she started this event at the Flemington Food Pantry many years ago. The 22nd this year is the event. It is kind of a drive-through this year because of COVID and everything like that. But it's $30 per person. I believe you do need a ticket, and what you get is a handmade artisanal bowl, one-of-a-kind piece of artwork. Plus, you get some soup, about 10 ounces from one of the restaurants in Flemington that's contributing.
Matt's Red Rooster's participating in this.
Yeah,
That's a great
some
restaurant.
really awesome restaurants are participating. You get a small sandwich, dessert, water, and there's also a nearby pottery sale with some of the local potters, so you can go ahead and maybe do a little bit of Christmas shopping, early Christmas shopping as well.
You can't believe this event. I mean, they basically get local potters to donate bowls, and then they build these meals around them. And you go and you pick up the meal and the bowl for $30. So if you can, on the screen, you could try to scan that QR code. If you can't, I'm going to be popping the link to the website for this into the chat periodically.
And it is all one word. It's FlemingtonFoodPantry.org, so you can certainly go look at that as well.
Yeah, and I'll pop the link in a little while so you can check that out. But that is a really, really cool event.
It really is.
All right, so let's... here's Gold Scopophilia again, creeping back in. I love my lower thirds, how they're like, they got a mind of their own.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Anything else to talk about before we move on? We got a featured supporter.
We have a featured supporter.
What else? I think that's about it.
That's about it.
Can I make a momentary plug for myself? I don't normally do this, but I just would like to let you know. I would like to let you know because, for one, we don't have a news segment this week, right? We were going to talk about Shatner going to space, which is not really art related, but I like Shatner.
Pop culture.
It's cool.
Yeah.
But we're not going to talk about that. But I do often in the news talk about NFTs. And so I just want to tell everybody that I'm going to be dropping 10 NFTs on OpenSea in about 2 weeks. You're going to be able to pick those up if you want. So just a thought, but they're going to be not replications, original digital files of my cabinet cards are going to be going up, and there's a couple of really, really sweet ones in there. You could be the owner of that if that's something that you do. So I don't know. I'll keep you posted on that if you like. Okay. Let's do a featured supporter tonight because I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about them all. But tonight's featured supporter is Sly Puma or Slipuma, depending on how you want to pronounce a screen name. But Slipuma, thank you very much. You have been a fantastic supporter of us. We love working with you, and we love having you here. So hopefully you'll see this, and if you don't, I will see you on Sunday. And by the way, we should tell everybody this, because this is kind of important. This weekend is the opening reception for Christian Newen's show at the Court Tree Collective in Brooklyn. So we're going to be heading out there. So we're going to be seeing that. We will probably also be able to hit the brownstone art for the closing of House Paint and Other Essays by Anne Sherwood Pundeck, which was last week's show. So we're going to be popping around the gallery scene in Brooklyn a little bit next Sunday, which will be kind of nice. But Slipuma has roots there. I don't like to give away those things, but we'll get to see Slipuma also.
Awesome.
All right. Cool. Should we do birthdays?
Let's do birthdays.
Okay. So, who's this dude?
Well, he has a birthday today, and I will say our birthday list is pretty developed, but at the last minute, I just kind of filled it up a little bit. So at the last minute, we were scrambling to put some more birthdays in there that we didn't realize were happening, and he was actually one of them. But his birthday is today. We didn't miss it. This is Al Held. He was born on this day in 1928. He's an American artist, abstract expressionist, painter. You can see some of his work here. I will say whenever we do birthdays, like I always say every week, I learn a little bit about an artist that I didn't realize before. And he had 3 murals in the World Trade Center in Building 7.
Yeah.
And they were destroyed when the World Trade Center went down from damage and debris from some of the other buildings. But that was like an interesting detail that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
So, but his birthday is today.
Happy birthday, Al.
Happy birthday.
Moving on.
This is Charles Worth. His birthday is October 13th, 1825. He created the House of Worth, which was distinctive fashion back in the 1800s, 1900s. One of his main supporters was Empress Eugenie, who was married to Napoleon III. Once she discovered his clothing, it really took off from there. He kind of transformed Parisian fashion and you see these beautiful garments.
Well, obviously, it helps when
Yes,
nobility notices
it
your
certainly
talents. I mean,
does.
come on.
Yep, he was English, but he pretty much dictated fashion.
If any of you out there happen to know any nobility, we would appreciate the referral or the
Sure.
hookup. Thank you for that.
That would be cool. So happy birthday. That's Charles' birth. He was born on the 13th of October in 1825.
All right, next.
Next, we have James Tissot. He was also Parisian. He was an impressionist painter. He was born on October 15th, 1836.
That's one of his pieces. I just figured.
That
I'm
is
going.
one of his
I'm taking
pieces.
my time here with the advancing.
Beautiful interiors.
All right. Next.
This is Paul Strand.
You have a big thing to tell us about Paul Strand.
I do, but I'm going to tell you in a few moments. So he's a photographer. He was born on October 16th, 1890. He is one of the founders of the Photo League that also had other participants in it, like Ansel Adams. He was a modernist like Stiglitz and Weston. He helped to establish photography as an art form. 1949, he moved to France because of the whole communist trying to get away from that in America. This was around 1949, and most of his friends were being called communists and such. So he was trying to escape the political atmosphere in the States. I will say, and this is kind of morbid, but I'll go there, he died on my birthday, like on my actual date of birth, the year and everything. So I'm just like,
I wonder what the time of death was.
I wonder what the time of death was. Were we alive at the same few hours? I don't know, but I was like, oh, when I discovered that.
And my mom just pointed out, and I don't mean to interrupt you, because that is actually a big deal. And I always find it odd or strange to find out that someone passed away at the time someone else was born. However, Mom points out that Ben Hagenbush, one of our, I think, without fail, has never missed a show, has a birthday this week. So Ben Hagenbush, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Ben.
We got to get him on our
we do.
On the list.
On the list, yes.
All right, so there is our Paul Strand photo.
Paul
Sorry
Strand,
about missing that.
But fascinating.
And one more.
This is Kerry James Marshall. He was born on October 17th in 1955. He's an American artist and teacher, and he's known mostly for his paintings of Black American life. So happy birthday to Kerry James Marshall.
It's a good list this week. I mean, we started out with two, and then you found that fantastic resource that kind of got us back up to something, much more robust.
Beefier.
Yeah, a little beefier. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Decent birthday segment.
Decent birthdays.
So usually at this time we do our little plea for support for the show. I've been working so hard. You're welcome, Ben. Happy birthday to you this week. We got to get him in the Instagram feed.
Oh, we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll work on that. We usually do our plea for support at this point, and we've got a lot going on. I mentioned that I would be announcing a date that we would be giving away the Susan Stillman painting. And so I've been tossing this one around for a while, and I've got it written on the board over there. We're going to be giving away the Susan Stillman painting on November 19th. So on November 19th, we're going to have a raffle on the show that will give away the beautiful Susan Stillman painting that was donated to us. Let me just pull that up for you. So this painting was donated to us by Susan Stillman. She's a fantastic painter. We're going to be giving that away on the show on November 19th. That's going to be the show we have Alan Wexler live. So that night is going to be a banner night. We're going to be giving away a beautiful painting. We've got Alan on the show live. A lot going on. So you're going to want to watch. You're going to want to watch. You got to be a follower to get that painting. Okay? So, make sure you definitely follow. And in the meantime, I'm going to work out the logistics because typically our follows are done through Twitch. I'm going to make sure that the giveaway is done across all three platforms. But get ready for that because that's coming up. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we're both on Patreon, and now you can actually subscribe to us through our website. And that link is going to be popping up in the chat occasionally. So any way that you can help us out. If you're here and you haven't followed yet, just like all of Glenn's students just did, which is awesome, thank you for that, definitely follow us. And you can follow us either on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, or all three. We would love that. So please give us a follow. Do what you can. Tell your friends to come and watch the show.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to stop right there.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. We're going to move on and start talking about tonight's artist, I think. I think it's about time we brought him in.
I think so.
All right. You want to start telling us about him?
I can certainly start telling you about him. So, we have actually talked about him before on the show. He made an appearance back in episode 25.
Can we stop for a second?
Yes.
I screwed something up.
What?
My mom, who's rabidly chomping at the bit
Yes.
to acquire that Susan Stillman painting,
Yeah.
has mentioned in the chat that November 19th is a Friday.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for that. Correction, November 9th. November 9th, not the 19th.
Just take that one away.
Take that one away. Yeah,
That's
November 9th will be that day. Thanks for that catch, Ma. Good job
Good catch.
there. All right, back to introducing our artist.
Back to introducing Mr. Lugo. So we've actually talked about him before. He, very briefly on episode 25, we were talking about art in the time of COVID. And the show that we featured was on the Shelter in Place Gallery that's located up in Massachusetts. It's run by Eben Haynes and his partner, Delaney Dixon. Actually, they just got married, so it's now his wife, Delaney Dixon.
Right.
He made an appearance in the gallery in a group show called the Craft School. And he had if you remember anything about the Shelter in Place Gallery, it's a tiny gallery, very small, 1/12 scale.
1/12 scale. Yeah, it's a beautiful little foam core box, basically. We showed this on what episode was it?
25.
25. You can get in there, you can kind of look inside the space, miniaturized art show, really quite beautiful.
Yes, and so he contributed a pot in the show. And of course, in that scale, it looked like it was enormous, but in actuality, it was very small. But that's the first time I saw him. Now, he's been around for quite a while. I know that he made a big appearance back at NCECA in 2015, and his career kind of blossomed from that point. But we're going to introduce to you Roberto Lugo.
Alan Wexler's here and he goes, "Thanks, Mom. I'm looking forward to being on the show on November 9th. I probably threw him off because he's like, wait a minute, the 19th? I don't
It's
have
like
it.
my calendar's all wrong. No, it's us.
Good to see you, Alan. Thanks for
catch.
being here.
Yes.
So, Roberto.
Roberto Lugo. He was born in 1981. He is a Philadelphia ceramic artist. He fuses several different genres together, from graffiti to hip-hop to history, politics. He's got two-dimensional pieces. He paints and he does ceramics. He lives in the Kensington section of Philadelphia, and you can often see him throwing pots on the street. He loves community involvement, which we're going to start talking about in a little bit. He was one of 3 children born to first-generation Puerto Rican immigrants. His father worked very hard. He used to bike all the way from Kensington, Philadelphia, to Cherry Hill, New Jersey, across the bridge to get to work every day.
That's fantastic.
His mother held down 3 jobs to try to get the family through. He had a very loving and warm family, but he did grow up in a very rough area. If anybody knows Kensington, Philadelphia, and it is experiencing some revival and gentrification right now, but it's a rough neighborhood. After jobs moved out of there, the buildings were abandoned. You saw some crime, increase in drug activity. There were gangs. So it wasn't a very safe neighborhood. Roberto Lugo grew up, and he was known as a quiet kid, very religious, obeyed everything. Good kid, but he mentions one story that kind of was a turning point. In school, they actually did a class trip to a prison, and one of the prison guards took him and made him out to be a bad example, and it really affected him because he was a good kid and he was singled out partly because of his race, maybe because of his situation, but it was a really negative feeling for him. He continued to go through school. all the way up until he graduated from high school. He did work in factory jobs afterwards, but at 22 he moved to Florida. And when he moved to Florida, that's when he decided to go to community college, and he took a pottery class, and it changed his life. When he was making pottery, the instructor was telling them to work from the heart and who they were and to be authentic. And what he sculpted was a fire hydrant, because he remembered those memories in Philadelphia of playing in the water. And he got rave reviews, and he said it was one of the first times that anybody ever told him that he was good at something, and that's what propelled him forward into pottery. So he went ahead and pursued his BFA. He did take classes here and there. I believe he studied at some point in Chicago, but his BFA is from the Kansas City Art Institute, and then he went on to get his master's degree from Penn State. Currently, he's teaching at Tyler University, Tyler Institute for Art at Temple University. I always get those messed up. But
It's great.
we're going to talk about Roberto Lugo, and we are particularly going to talk about his activism in the community, his education standpoint, all of those great things.
Yeah, this guy's pretty amazing. And, one of the things that really drew me to him was, one, there's just this lavish, robust kind of feeling to the graphical nature of his vessels and his sculptures. And there's just also this feeling you get when you hear him talk, when he's kind of talking about why he works, how he works, the people in his community, how he kind of pulls all that together. There's an emotion there in his voice and in his presentation that is so genuine that you can't not fall in love with him.
This is true.
Right?
And I actually want to comment on that Zeke Conference. This was back in 2015, and it was in Providence, Rhode Island. And I actually have one of my girlfriends attended. When I grew up with a bunch of potters. My mom was heavy duty into pottery, so NCECA was a big deal. NCECA is the National Council on Education in Ceramics Arts. Every year they hold a major conference in which speakers come from all over the place. Okay. Little side note. He's telling me not to hit the mic. I guess I hit the mic, so I apologize if I did that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Okay, but anyway, he spoke at NCECA. He came in rapping. He's a poet. So he started rapping, and my friend's first reaction was, wow, you need to know your audience, because usually it was older people. They weren't young people. They were from, different socioeconomic backgrounds and whatnot. But by the middle, not even the middle, he won everybody over with his history, with how he started pottery, with how he grew as an artist, with how he goes into the community, and what he's doing, the caliber of his artwork. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. No, the first time I heard him speak, and I didn't hear him, I wasn't in person hearing him speak, but I saw it online. I was like, oh, this guy is just, he really got to me.
Yeah.
Like I got a little choked up when I was listening to him, and I was like, wow, this is really great. Let's start popping through some of these images. And we started out with these teapots just because I feel like they really kind of call attention to the work that he does in a way that, I like to start things off with a bang.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That was a bad dad joke. But
that was a bad dad joke.
Can you tell us a little bit about these pots?
I can. So they're teapots. He primarily works in porcelain. When he first started studying ceramics, he did notice that a lot of people were creating teapots when they were throwing on the wheel. And he made a couple of jokes about it, like, he was saying, like, how much tea do white people drink? They're always making teapots and stuff like that. He didn't quite understand the whole point of making teapots. But then he started thinking about the history of the ceremony of tea and teapots, and who gets to drink the tea, and who owns these lavish pieces. And he started thinking about, in his own culture, that there's a lot of cultures grossly underrepresented in art, and he thought he could change it. When he was looking at the form of the teapot, he was noticing that the spout looked like the barrel of a gun. He was noticing that other elements of the top look like things that you'd find around the neighborhood, like maybe the top of a hose or something like that. So he started emulating or creating parts of the teapot that looked like these associations that he was familiar with. And he also noticed that there was underrepresentation with portraiture, like who was being portrayed on fine art in lavish objects. And it usually wasn't people of color, it usually wasn't people who were social activists or anything like that. So he tried to change the history and the dialogue and the overall circumstances that you would find this kind of artwork.
You know, it's funny. It's not funny, but I'm making a connection now that I hadn't thought of before. And one of the things I really like about these, I immediately start to think of the HBO TV series The Wire. And one of the beautiful things about The Wire was that you basically kind of see Baltimore, Maryland from two sides of the spectrum, the police side of the spectrum, and all of the functioning, all of the rules and systems and behavior inside the police. And then you also see it from the side of the ghetto and these drug runners and the rules and the systems and the behaviors inside of that system. And they're bizarrely the same, right? And so they're drawing parallels between these two very, sort of dysfunctional but functional systems. In this, he's drawing these similar parallels in, like, he's drawing parallels between these modes of oppression and these vessels of the very people that probably employ or maintain those modes of oppression, which is really a nice touch. All the while, though, maintaining the beauty, the decoration, all of the tenets of the teapot that draw us to it as an object are there. But then, of course, we see these other things that we're offered up to consider, and it's really quite beautiful and disturbing. And now all of a sudden the object doesn't just come at us as this, let's pour our hot drinks out of this gorgeous thing. Now we're going to think about what it means to pour that out of there.
Right.
Which is just brilliant. It's brilliant. I've got a couple of close-ups on some of these and a couple of different views.
Yep, so you can kind of see. Now this particular teapot he would juxtapose different images. You'd see pop culture and social activists on the other side. So this particular teapot, on one side you have Tupac Shakur, and then on the other side you have Martin Luther King Jr.
Right, those are the two sides. Which, again, another, juxtaposition that is, he's kind of taking two figures from Black history that are kind of from two different arenas, and he's bringing them together in this space. I really like that because it creates this new dialogue to think about, right?
Yeah. Now, one major thing I want to say that I haven't said yet, and I should have said it right away, and one thing I love when I look at artists is what was the first inspiration? What was that first flicker that kind of made you go there? And when he was growing up, they were poor. They didn't have any money. And he didn't have any access to art supplies. There wasn't really any artistic influences around him. But his cousins did graffiti. And they started taking him to go do graffiti with them. And he really enjoyed it. That was his first exposure to any kind of artistic endeavor. He did have a tag, I believe it was Robske, R-O-B-S-K-E. I could be wrong about that, and I'm hitting the mic with my paper again. Yes, it was R-O-B-S-K-E, and he attributes this graffiti and his experience with it is to propelling him forward into pottery. He says if he never did that, he probably wouldn't have been interested in art in the first place. So when you look at some of his artwork, you do see graffiti elements in it. So I just wanted to bring that up too, because I hadn't brought that up earlier.
Yeah, and I like the ceramics, pottery in general. I've always been fascinated with the process. It's not something, and I've used clay before, but something about the fact that you're using physical earth in your hands, right? It's one of the rawest of the raw materials. So many other materials go through these processes before they're, like you could say, well, I work in, who knows, wood, stone, metal, go on and on and on. Nobody works in stone. Well, people work in stone. I shouldn't say nobody works in stone. But stone and this earth, the clay, are kind of very closely aligned. But earth has this raw connection.
It does.
This raw connection to, it's pulled from the earth. I once watched this beautiful video that I believe it was Glenn Lavertu posted about this potter. I believe it's in either Vietnam or China, that collects clay by hand from a very, very sort of scarce resource and makes these pots from that. It's really quite interesting. But it really shows you the direct connection to the earth. Now, in the city, like in Kensington, Philadelphia, where everything's paved, this is another thing I think that sort of helps to sort of define or help flesh out Lugo's kind of, authenticity. Right? Because it kind of goes past that. He kind of, it feels like it almost gives him a sense of deeper roots to something deeper than what the city might have been, comprised of. So that's the first thing I really like about that. And then you talk about graffiti. And graffiti also has that raw connection to the cityscape, right? It's not paintings on canvases that are done in a way that's sort of meant to be hauled around in neat boxes and put on white walls. It's directly connected to a building. So there's this, to me, Lugo's got this sense of connection to things that is direct and tangible, and that feels really good. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm drawn to this work. And as I'm saying all that, Shirley is saying, I love Terri's comments.
Comments too, but it's true. I was thinking the same thing, especially when I was looking into some of the practices with pottery and stuff like that. And I know a little bit here and there, but even looking at videos and the different types of dirt and the different types of clay that they create and how you can make your own clay. And I'm thinking the same thing. He's in this urban concrete environment, and it's like taking the dust and just building it upwards.
And that's part of it, right? It's a sense of resource, right, or resourcefulness, that you do what you have to do to make your art. Now, I understand that the connection between the earth of pottery and the city is a little bit of a stretch, but it's not a stretch at all when you think about making graffiti, right? Because, there's your surface, go get to work.
Yeah.
So.
So flipping through some of these, we got Biggie Smalls on one of the teapots.
Glenn is saying Koichiro Izusaki was the artist who collects that clay. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Glenn, if you can send me that link, I don't know if you can post the link in the chat. You might get the bot after you, but if you could send me the link, I can try and put it up there. So we've got some Biggie Smalls. I actually like this because now we're starting to sort of see a little bit of the graffiti element in the pot, but also fused with this kind of classical sculpture that sort of, is flourishing up in the top.
We have an image of Frederick Douglass on the vessel. Some of the flourishes, as you mentioned, we do see the graffiti, but in other ones there is pattern, repetition in the design. Some of those patterns are taken from graffiti, some are taken from things like bandanas, so like bandana motifs. So you see these motifs repeating throughout some of his artwork. He also liked to play with some of the images and to create these paradoxes. For example, he would take a Confederate flag and use like Sojourner Truth or somebody with that and kind of create a new narrative or really make you think about that object and what happened. So
right.
He was very aware of what he was doing with these vessels.
And I don't remember if that's in the video we're going to show tonight.
There's a lot of fantastic videos, and I have to say one of the reasons why we're talking about him tonight is he's got some major shows going on. He's coming to the Met this fall. He's also got a show at UPenn right now. That's fantastic, and we are going to show some of the images from that. He's in a show in New Hampshire right now. All these fantastic shows. I'm going to take that back. CBS Sunday Morning, I believe, had a little mini documentary on him this past Sunday that was fantastic. You actually see him on the streets of Kensington with his wheel, inviting people to throw with him. And you actually get to watch, and that's definitely worth watching, because you get to see him with the community, and someone who's never touched clay before, had no interest in it, is there with him, and he's guiding him in making this pottery. And he really believes in bringing this to the community and fostering this love of art and building themselves up. And that's one of the reasons why we love him so much.
We got Maggie Morris here saying, wow, this is the first time I'm joining. Love the podcast, guys. By the way, tequila lime in my glass. Cheers. And cheers to you, Maggie. Thanks for hanging out with us. And I want to make a comment on, hang on. I want to make a comment on what you just said, because part of this whole activism thing that we're talking about with Lugo that I am just absolutely in love with and blown away by is, there is the motifs that are on the actual vessels and pots and sculptures, but then there's the physical action that this man engages with the community, takes his potter's wheel out onto the street in Kensington and invites people to throw, because he wants to show them that that physical act with the hands, that can reveal so many things about what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. And it did it for him. His first positive experiences came through his connection to that clay in taking that course, and someone showing him to be their authentic self. And now he's out on the street with a wheel saying, come on, let's do this. And he's communicating with people that way.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It really, really is.
And Audrey says, great article in the Times about him.
I'm sure he's really making a lot of headlines lately, so he's very relevant right now.
And yes, Ben, to your question, all the pieces are ceramic. Mm-hmm. So, just keep that in mind.
And he usually does porcelain. That's his clay of choice.
Right.
But sometimes he'll stray and do other things. Now, he's also a fantastic two-dimensional artist, which we're going to show you in a little bit with one of his shows. But I guess we can see, you're seeing more of the graffiti right here on this pot. He does Basquiat. Basquiat is a very common portrait that he puts on many of his vessels. In fact, he's got an auction going right now. If you go, don't do it now, but if you go to his Instagram, he's trying to raise money. He's trying to build Lugo Farms. It's going to be an arts environment in which he can offer classes, and he wants to buy a farm to get out of the city and to create kind of like an oasis for other people who want to get out of the city as well. So one of the things he's doing is he's creating little vessels right now that you can bid on. There's an auction going on, but Basquiat is a very familiar face that you're seeing. I love this one because this goes back to the tradition of even Egyptian pottery, where you see the black engobe on top of the terracotta pot, but you're seeing some urban scenes in the silhouette on this.
Yeah, no, I love that. Again, he's making the connections to the more sort of the more traditional aesthetics, right? But now he's reinventing them from his own experience. And so I love that call and response to what was and what is. So, and on the farm thing that you were talking about, I love that notion of him, again, I believe that's to try and create a system of resources for people like him who he can sort of share in that with. When someone achieves a kind of fame, I'm always interested to see what they do with that. How do they give back to the community? How do they take what they know, what they've learned, what got them where they are, and sometimes their income, and turn that into an opportunity for the people that, I won't say they left behind, but the people that they don't forget where they're from, right? And I love that about him.
He includes his family in many of his endeavors too. Like, he loves his mom and his dad. He talks about them all the time. Some of his artwork centers around his parents too. And I think we have a piece. I think this actually is the piece, but
I don't have the back of it.
You don't have the back of it. His dad is juxtaposed, I believe, on the other side of this vessel. So he put some of them together. And this is a piece that's in a current exhibit right now over at UPenn. but he remembers his family. He loves his family. One of his stories, too, that he told at the Zeke Conference was about his brother in incarceration. And his brother was unfairly incarcerated on drug charges. He's out of the prison now, but there was a lot of guilt and feelings such as that because Roberto Lugo continued to be out in the world and making pots and experiencing successes, but his brother was not. And this is something that really affected some of his artwork. You do see themes of incarceration in some of his pieces and oppression. So
yeah, why don't we show the video? I think it's a good time to kind of give people a little
glimpse.
A little glimpse. So let me pop over to that. Give me half a second. Let's take a look at this from PBS NewsHour. This was
pretty current too. This is about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, this is pretty recent. All right, let's take a look.
And now a look at artist Roberto Lugo, who puts family, tradition, and historical figures like Harriet Tubman at the center of his work. Special correspondent Jared Bowen of GBH Boston brings us this report from New Hampshire as part of our ongoing arts and culture series, Canvas.
In mugs and plates and urns at the Currier Museum of Art in New Hampshire, we find the porcelain DNA of artist Roberto Lugo.
In this exhibition, I have images of protests of historical figures like Angela Davis and Black Thought and people that have really inspired me to make me who I am, and I couldn't be that without those people.
This show, as the title explains, is the ceramicist bringing us his joy in a career literally shaped around culture, his own roots in graffiti, and his love of family.
Here's my mother with her granddaughter teaching her how to make pasteles, which is a Puerto Rican dish. And then there's an image of a family in the 60s, which is my family. My grandma with the bouffant and, getting ready for church. And in some ways, I think this table is like a self-portrait.
He's thinking about his culture, where he comes from, people that influence him.
Contemporary art curator Samantha Cataldo says she's drawn to how Lugo takes centuries of prized porcelain tradition from Europe and Asia, only to upend it with his story.
Using this historic form of pottery and porcelain especially, which traditionally would have kings and queens and very much within a Western and white narrative, to put someone like Harriet Tubman or himself or the rapper Missy Elliott onto a piece of pottery is really making a statement like, I belong here, my culture belongs here.
What do you make of how open he is and how much autobiography there is in his work?
Yeah, Roberto's work is very vulnerable.
So was Lugo himself, when as a young art student of Puerto Rican descent, he was bluntly told he didn't fit in.
I feel judged exhaustively, and that's one of the things that drove me to make the work I did, because when I was in a class and there's a photograph of me and someone just says, this looks like a Mexican gangster, and it was this moment where, I'm sitting there making pottery and I'm like, no matter what I make, this is how people are gonna see me if I'm involved in the work. And so I started making work to counteract that.
Which has meant depicting life the way he sees it, including tea time. For Lugo, a very foreign concept.
When I took my first pottery class, I'd never drunk tea from a teapot, and so I see all these students around me making teapots and making teacups, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how much tea do these people drink, And I didn't understand it. I'm not sure if people realize that, like, when a person of color that grows where I did, when I'm having tea, there's all these things that come into my mind, and it can't just be about tea because of my experiences, So like, I'll look at certain shapes and it'll remind me of other things. Like when I look at a spout, I also think of a gun trigger because of the ghetto that I grew up in.
The artist's singular vision has landed him in museum collections. He's been awarded the prestigious Rome Prize, and he's collaborated with celebrities and fans like actor Seth Rogen. But Lugo is most mindful of his roots. He can often be found working with his and other communities, giving away work, teaching kids, and working with veterans. And he has a name for it.
It's sort of this idea that I'm the village potter.
Because Lugo wants to be a connector of people and art. He asked the Currier Museum to place his work atop or alongside its own historic pieces. His urn, featuring Bob Marley, rests on an 18th century table.
People can see that, oh, these things can coincide and be beautiful. And that's really the hope, is that when people see themselves reflected in the narrative of a person of color, then they grow closer to that, you know?
Much the same way Lugo found himself connected to this painting in the Currier's collection. It's by white folk artist Grandma Moses and reminds him of his parents' upbringing in Puerto Rico.
I think there's this like sense of displacement I've always felt as a Puerto Rican growing up and always hearing about my parents and you know, the farm life. These kind of paintings like almost transport you there where you feel like you're comfortable however you are there, you know, like working on the farm. And I just love that about these pieces.
It's a shared experience for the artist who's learned it takes a village to be the potter. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jared Bowen in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Okay, so first of all, I love the notion that at the end they go through the Grandma Moses farm piece, and we get the connection to how he's trying to now do this for himself, which I find to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Audrey says village potter in Hungarian is fazikas.
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 Yes, I think that's.
Is that? Oh, we can't say.
We can't say.
Oh, okay. That's well. Then why'd you whisper it? Now I want to say it.
Because I was gonna whisper.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay. Anyway, and John says, great video, amazing work, and amazing person, and he is.
He really is.
So we're not done with him yet, though, because we've got some good stuff to show yet. We haven't gotten into some of the more. I want to get down to some of the sculptural pieces.
A little bit more.
You know, like this. You know, this freaking panda bear is the best.
Yeah. So he did do some sculptural pieces.
Audrey said it. Maiden name.
Yes, maiden name. Good. This was one of them. You don't see too many, but you can see the bear breaking through the Chinese pottery, or Asian pottery rather.
Right.
And he does do another sculpture that I'm looking at after that one, which is it's more of a self-portrait. It's the one right after this one. Yeah.
Let's
and it's
zoom in
kind
a
of
little bit.
him emerging from a vessel. He does talk about using sculpture to deal with issues that are really uncomfortable for him. Like he said, he struggles with his weight. That's something he's very open about. So we have some of that. We're also looking at some pictures of other art shows right here. So he's also a two-dimensional artist. This was a show not too long ago. This was called Ghetto Garniture. And all of the pieces are his, the sculpture, the ceramics, and the two-dimensional pieces on the wall.
You know, I love in a show like this in particular, the play on the content in the work and the way in which it's situated in the gallery. Because the gallery has, and even consider the table that the vessel is on off to the side there. There's this kind of connection to a history that this work directly runs in opposition to, or challenges, or makes you think about those two opposing forces.
It does, and actually when you get close to that particular piece, you almost think the table becomes part of the piece. It's not separate from it, and especially when you look at the surface of the table.
Exactly, and I was going to mention the fact that there becomes this connection.
Yes.
And it's this interesting blend between opposition and connection that creates this, there's a dialogue there that begins to develop. It's like, does this belong here or does it not belong here?
Yeah.
So I love that about that.
Do we have another, I think we have an image of that particular
piece, right?
On the table, though, the table.
Let me just move forward
Maybe
a little
not.
bit.
We don't.
I thought we
So
did.
just to talk about that right there, the table is like a marble top table with reference to early 19th, late 18th century furniture. But on the marble top, there's graffiti right under the base.
Ah, okay.
So it is connected to the actual vessel. So I wish we could see that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I don't have that
that's
actually.
Okay. That was my bad. I loaded the images. So.
Ben is loving this. He's got some comments in there. He's kind of going, oh, he's like, this is out of the ballpark. Yeah, so this show in particular really gets me, but can we show the other show that we've got, the one at
Yeah.
UPenn? Can we jump? Well, hold on.
Well, we can. Can we look at some of these other pieces as well?
Yeah.
I love these. I love this. I love the juxtaposition of function and sculpture, and it's just.
Well,
What more can you say?
well, again, he has this sort of reference to the person in the image that's sort of emblazoned on the vessel, but now all of a sudden, rather than it just being a teapot, it now sort of takes on some of the physical elements of that persona, right, and really becomes something totally different, which I'm kind of interested in. And there's a couple of
There's
these.
a couple of those.
There's
the Lil Wayne piece.
Which
Lil
one's
Wayne.
that?
My
This one?
bad. That one right there.
Yep.
So you can see that as well. He starts to use clay and create trompe l'oeil metal with the chains.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, and I really appreciate how ceramic still, it's sort of like he's taking it to these other places of opulence, right? But it's still it still comes from the earth. It's still this kind of
still comes from
there's
there.
this value associated with it, but it's not really about that.
Right.
That gold is used in just the right way. There's a couple of pieces here. I love that gold tank.
Yep, I love how he displays them on these pedestals.
That's the Lil Wayne piece on the right. Now, I had a close-up before, but that's the actual full-size piece.
Yep.
What else do we have here to show them?
I have, this is kind of an aside, not really connected, but the one image there.
This one.
Yes, and he does talk about this particular one. This was the image that was on a food stamp, and he grew up on government assisted living, and he does remember using food stamps, and he'll tell you that this food stamp here, the same one he used to buy hoagies with. And he makes a joke, he's like, they were delicious, but this is, he uses the imagery here on a beautiful piece of pottery that normally could have an image of a presidential figure or something like that, but he directly takes it from something that is not known to be.
Well, I think this is a good opportunity. When we talked about, I'm gonna circle back to the beginning of the show now. When we talked about Empty Bowl and what they do in this county, this is a really interesting way to bring that back, because one of the reasons they do this whole process with the food pantry in Flemington, New Jersey, is to raise awareness about food instability, right? The fact that there are people, even in areas where you think there might not be, that don't have access to food all the time.
Right.
And here is this incredible ceramic pot with
Yes.
a direct reference to food instability
Right.
in Roberto Lugo's collection, which is, I like the connection between those two things.
I do, but I don't, because
Well-
you think about who owns a vessel like this, and there's obviously a power shift with the socioeconomic status. This is owned probably by somebody who has great wealth and controls it. So when you see something like this, and that's his point, but this is a very powerful piece.
But see, this is the part I was getting at with value, and why I love Lugo's connection to the way in which he kind of utilizes gold, say, for example, in this, right? Is there are the teapots that are, of great wealth. People of great wealth have these pots. But then there's also this notion that an earthenware vessel can be created by anyone's hands. In any tribe, in any culture, earthenware can be made. And so it spans this incredible, vast chasm of socioeconomic space.
Right.
Now, Lugo does a really good job of pointing out the people at the top and the opulence and the wealth that's associated with some of these finer things. But at the same time, he's still keeping his hands in that really rich, grounded space that it originates from.
This is true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, Empty Bowl or Roberto Lugo, they make that connection.
They do.
Right? There's a simplicity to that handmade clay bowl. And if you watch that video that Glenn had mentioned, the name is now escaping me. Let me scroll back to where it is. It's Koichiro Izazaki. Koichiro Izazaki's video really shows a very sort of direct connection to that gathering kind of instinct, this slow process of accumulating the clay and working slowly, so slowly, to create something simple and beautiful. And that to me, and useful, that to me is fantastic. All right, so let's keep going because I want to show this U pen.
Let's get to this U pen show. This is actually currently up. And I just want to pull up my notes. So this is at the Arthur Ross Gallery at University of Pennsylvania. It's called God Complex, Different Philadelphia. It started September 10th. That was the opening, but it is up until December 19th. So if you're in the Philly area, I know I really want to see this show. You see him right now. So basically what happened is that he was invited into the museum for the show, and he rearranged the space, and the walls were actually a blue color that was similar to the walls over at Independence Hall in Philadelphia where the Declaration of Independence was signed. But when he was looking around at the space initially, you know, he noticed that there were a lot of portraits of white men by white artists. So when he went into the museum, they allowed him to transform the space. He does use graffiti techniques, and there are videos where you can actually see him painting on the walls.
Right.
He covers it with the red, and then he does the overlap with the roller, and then you see the layers of spray paint and marker and all the tools that you would see with graffiti.
I love this juxtaposition.
The juxtaposition
So
is
great.
just like,
right?
I just want to see this so bad. So yes, and I love it. And actually, when you look at the pots, again, what he does with the pottery is that on the one side of the pot, you're going to see the image of a historical figure, and on the other side, you're going to see somebody else. That is the Ben Franklin pot. On the other side of that is the portrait of his father.
Yeah, so what we're seeing in the foreground are the original paintings that are hanging in this space.
Yes, those are the original
And beyond
paintings.
that is how Lugo transformed it.
Yep, exactly. So, yep, and we can go through some of those pieces. This was one of the openings. See people interacting in the space. So fantastic show. If you go up a little bit, Todd, right there. Nope, right there. That is the portrait of his father on the opposite
side of the Ben Franklin. Yeah.
Or
Okay. Good. So we did have it.
And
Good.
his father was thrilled. He was so happy to be included in a show at this gallery with all of these important figures, and he's one of them. So yeah.
Let's look at a couple of more from this. Give a sense of scale to some of these
Lugo
ponds. Yep.
With the people. So.
Couple more. We saw this one already, I believe.
Yep. I love the train on top. It's the SEPTA, system. So if anybody's ever been to Philadelphia, you know the frustration.
Which they're talking about changing the name of SEPTA. I think they already did change it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they're working on changing that name and rebranding the entire system because there's been so many problems with it and so many issues. So now I believe it's going to be called something else.
I think
it's going to be called the Metro.
Day. Okay.
You know. So let's just do a couple more here. We saw this one. I love this one.
Yep, this is him with his one of the classes, a summer class at Tyler. And I believe this was in 2019. He's very active in his community and teaching and educating, and he's often inviting people in. But this is one of the portraits of him with his class.
I'd love to run into this guy in Kensington and just be out and about and see him on the streets.
Yeah.
I would love to just and not be like, that starstruck kind of passerby, but I would just be like, man, I want to sit down and just throw a pot with this guy and learn, because I've actually never worked on a wheel before. I've taken a lot of ceramics classes, I've hand-built things.
Haven't?
Nope, I've pinch-built things, I've coil-built things, but I've never worked on a wheel. And
it is, it's funny, it has a lot of ASMR qualities to it. It's really relaxing because you feel that slippery clay and you hear the hum of the wheel going. And I think that's why a lot of people get involved in pottery. There's something very soothing about it, and meditative.
And now all of a sudden you start to kind of realize where if you're living in a space that there's a lot of stress and anxiety in, this is a way out of it.
Yes, and even when he's throwing pots with people on the street, that noisy background seems to go away. You see the person throwing the pottery, and it doesn't matter what's going on around them. You see him and Roberto Lugo like guiding his hands, and they're so into that moment, and that, and it's spinning around in a spiral and stuff like that. One thing he did say that I thought was really cool, whenever he throws pots, he thinks of his dad, and when he would ride into Cherry Hill, and the motion of the bike wheel and the motion of the pottery wheel, and it was like a really nice homage to his dad.
I love that. I love
it was
that.
really, really cool.
Well, and there's a lot of associations we can make to this sort of circular motion and the earthenware clay or the porcelain clay in this case. But I think the thing I love the most is that he gets the tools of the trade outside of that sometimes inaccessible place.
Yeah.
A ceramic studio is something that not many people have access to. You do in a community college, which I think is a beautiful place to sort of go and learn this. And we're fortunate to have those things. But to get that on the street, that's gold. That's just gold. And I love that. And we're getting some really nice comments. Audrey, thank you. She says, you've done so many great shows, but wow, this one is off the charts. Love this artist. Thank you. Ben's still loving on it. Lynn is still here. It shuts up the part of your brain that never shut up.
She's talking about the process.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's really a lot about the zone of art making in general, but especially ones that have this kind of methodical, repetitious sort of element to it. I find that when I'm working something with my hands, like in a sanding motion, for example, or a planing motion, because it's repetitious and the thought is allowed to sort of drain away, there's a zone that you lapse into that is meditative, and it's I can see this being probably the highest point of that. Possibly.
I agree.
Well, that's going to do it for us, I believe.
That's going to do it for us. Yes, Roberto Lugo.
This guy is amazing.
I love him.
I highly recommend that you...
I can't wait to see the Met show, too. I don't know when that's going to be opening. I know it's this fall. I tried to find the date. If anybody knows, let me know.
Wait, it's coming this fall?
This fall.
All right.
So any day now.
We'll pop that into the newsletter if we can. We're definitely going to go in and see that, so we'll post about it. We'll probably do a little review of it.
Or you can go to Pennsylvania and see it at UPenn. That cool show.
Yeah.
At the Arthur Ross Gallery.
In his home neighborhood.
Yes. Well, not quite.
Not the neighborhood, but
not in Kensington.
In the city.
Yeah, in the city.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, but he's so cool. I will say you can also check him out on Instagram. I have some stuff. He told me not to hit the mic, so I'm trying to avoid doing that. But he is at Roberto Lugo without wax. That's his tag on Instagram, at Roberto Lugo without wax. If you go there, his link gets you right to the auction that he's having, so you can score some original pieces by him. They typically go for thousands of dollars, but bidding starts in a little bit lower than that. We don't like to talk about
those
prices,
pots. Yeah, I mean, well, we could talk about prices. I mean, let's put it this way: Roberto Lugo's work in general is not something we have the financial capability to collect. But
on the auction, we could. So
he's got a thing on his auction where he'll write a poem for you.
For $100, which I would love, because he's a rapper poet, and if you look at the Ensika YouTube video, you see his rapping in motion.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's good.
Really awesome.
So see if you can pick that up. See if you can get over there and bid on one of those pots. I think getting a hold of one of this guy's works would be just fantastic. And it's it's helping a good cause.
It really
You're helping
is.
him to get out there and get to that farm. So let's just go down some comments really quickly. Jess Park says, this is excellent, love it. Audrey was commenting on the show and saying it was great, thank you. Ben says this is awesome. Mom, thank you so much. Dave, thank you so much. Boo Jazz, thank you so much. John and Jess Park, that's John saying, writers have it worst. Can't get away from words. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
This is true.
Ben says, guys, this was a really good show. It was excellent. Thank you for that. Carolyn, thank you very much. All of you, thanks for watching tonight. We have a great show next week, which we're really excited about. A live artist on the show. Wendy Letvin is going to be live from her studio talking about her practice. She is showing like wildfire. Her work is evolving. She's all over the place. Fantastic pieces. Can't wait to talk to her. So excited about that. Maggie Morris says, I'm not sure if you talked about this before. How do you choose your artist of the week?
We have it planned out quite a distance.
We're pretty far out. We're probably out into January at this point. But the way we choose in general is, number one, we're constantly scouring the various, we do a lot on Instagram, but of course we're also staying in touch with, people that, like Roberto Lugo he's way up there.
He is, and plus he's very relevant right now because of a lot of the press that he's getting. So that was one of the reasons why we selected him for this week. But there's other things. Sometimes someone will just blip across our radar and we both get really excited when we're talking about it, and that's when we know we have a good show.
We also actively are we constantly are trying to be diverse in the various media that we decide to show, as well as the various cultures, genders, that we want to be across the board in this and be as inclusive as we possibly can. So within that mix, we've got a massive list of people that we're like, let's look at this person, let's look at this person. And we break that up in a way that hopefully, doesn't stick to one thing for too long.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question. But cool. Well, Maggie, thanks for being here. We hope you come back. And to the rest of you, join us for Wendy Letvin next week. I think that's going to be an awesome show. And in the meantime, don't forget, Thursday, you're going to get to guess what Terri's pieces on Instagram.
Right. You can win a limited edition enamel pin. So.
All right. Well, to all of you, thanks again. We'll see you next week. And cheers.